The North America was once an uninhabited wilderness where huge herds of big animals roamed. It was only about 15,000 years ago when the Columbian mammoths, bisons, saber-toothed cats, and giant ground sloths lived here. After that, the climate changed, and human hunters caused the extinction of most of the big mammals. Only a few species survived in the harsh deserts of southwestern USA and northern Mexico until recent days. The tough bighorn sheeps belonged to them. They move easily in the rocky terrain, and they can survive with the minimum of food which they find in this environment. Today, the deserts are not shaking under the hooves of thousands of herbivores, but some animals which lived in that age are still present here. It is estimated that around 25 million years ago, one particular group of vipers started to thrive in North America, and they still dominate this continent. The rattlesnakes. After millions of years of evolution, they attained body structures which allowed them to become the most successful venomous snakes in this part of the world. Rattlesnakes are masters of hunting techniques, defense mechanisms, and breeding efficiency. The highest number of species lives in the desert areas, occurring from Arizona in the north to the dry highlands of central Mexico. A huge temperature differences between the day and night and the shortage of water are characteristic for this landscape, but the rattlesnakes are perfectly adapted for the life here. The most typical feature of rattlesnakes is the rattle. Its function was once to warn the big herbivores about the presence of a venomous snake so they don't step on it. This warning is still recognized by modern animals in the desert, and they will avoid getting close to the snake. The rattle is formed by hollow segments made of keratin. The snake gets a new segment by the alternation of scales at the tip of its tail after each shedding. When disturbed, the rattlesnake starts to move its tail, and the vibrations of segments create the typical rattling sound. The tail muscles of these snakes belong to the fastest in the animal kingdom, and they can perform a vibrating movement of 50 times per second. The young rattlesnakes are born only with one segment on their rattle, and they can't produce a sound with it. They need to wait until they shed for the first time to be able to use their defensive strategy effectively. The deserts where rattlesnakes thrive are home to a surprisingly high number of endemic organisms, especially plants. Probably the most famous desert of the southwestern North America is the Sonoran Desert. A huge saguaro cactus is the dominant of the landscape in many areas, and it doesn't grow anywhere else in the world. Saguaro can grow up to 15 meters in height, and it often lives longer than 150 years. These cacti stand in the country as silent watchers, and they resist every climate fluctuation in the desert. Inside every cactus, there is a huge reservoir of water, and in case of full capacity, a single plant can weigh up to 6 tons. The landscape is far from monotonous. Apart from saguaros, there are many other species of cacti and succulent plants in the Sonoran Desert. Sometimes an animal appears among the sporadic vegetation. Most of the species have their own way of how to survive in the harsh desert environment. Rattlesnakes are among those groups of vertebrates which really thrive here. The biggest and most common species of southwestern North America is the western diamondback rattlesnake. Occasionally, it can reach a length of 2 meters, and it is also known for its nervous nature. If it feels threatened, it usually stands up in a defensive position and starts to rattle loudly. This species is the perfect representative of rattlesnakes and the most well-known publicly in every area where it lives. The daily activity of rattlesnakes is mostly restricted to the early morning and late afternoon, when the temperatures are bearable for the cold-blooded reptiles. The time for hunting starts after the night comes. The western diamondback rattlesnake is an ambush predator which waits for the prey to come close. To localize it precisely, the snake uses its thermoreceptors, which are the holes on the head in between the eyes and nasal cavities. Thermoreceptors detect infrared radiance, which is more intensive with increasing temperature. The rattlesnake is able to register warm-blooded prey even in the full darkness because the thermoreceptors are sensitive to temperature differences even smaller than 0.2 degrees Celsius. Not only the rattlesnakes are active during the night, the same applies for other specialized predators. Some of them also use venom to subdue their prey, like scorpions and tarantulas. Apart from these, there are others which hunt small prey and don't need any chemical weapons, like geckos and toads. The mornings are chilly in the desert, so the rattlesnakes are seeking places where they can gather the heat as fast as possible. The second most common big rattlesnake species in this part of the world is the black-tailed rattlesnake. It differs a lot in its behavior from the western diamondback rattlesnake. black-tailed rattlesnake is very calm in most situations, and it even rarely uses the rattle to produce a warning sound. The individuals living in some areas on the border of Arizona and Mexico possess a beautiful color pattern with striking black patches. Western diamondback and black-tailed rattlesnake are generalists which inhabit various different desert habitats. One other common but smaller species of rattlesnake has perfectly adapted almost exclusively to life in the rocky areas. The coloration of the speckled rattlesnake helps it to blend with the surroundings. It is quite difficult to notice the presence of the snake among the rocks. Different populations of the species have very variable colors according to the type of rock where they live. The reddish individuals belong to the most prominent ones. Smaller size helps the speckled rattlesnakes to climb up in the bushes where they wait for their prey. This species of rattlesnake often shares its habitat with another beautifully colored reptile. The rocky terrain, combined with sandy soil and an abundance of cactus trees, is a domain for one of the few venomous lizards in the world. This is the Gila monster, an extraordinary reptile which spends most of its time hidden under the ground. Its overall activity per year, counted together, is equal to a time of only 3 weeks. When the Gila monster moves, it usually searches for food. Just like snakes, it flicks its tongue and tries to find any interesting smell. In the lower jaw, it has a true venom gland, and the venom gets on the victim's body during chewing through the grooves in sharp teeth. The strength of the Gila monster's jaws is incredible. If it bites something, it rarely lets it go. This lizard feeds on small vertebrates, but its most favorite food are reptile or bird eggs. The Gila monster really loves eggs, and despite its low activity throughout the year, it is able to locate such a rare feast as the nests, thanks to its excellent sense of smell. from 5 to 10 prey items are being found on average per year. So when the Gila monster has a chance, it can eat a portion equal to 1/3 of its body mass. After the feast, it will find a shelter and hide itself again for some time. Vast areas of Sonoran Desert are flat with terrain ranging from rocky to sandy. It is similar to the other deserts in the region, the Mojave Desert and the Chihuahuan Desert. Survival in the open habitat is very tricky for the animals because there are not enough places to hide when the temperatures are very high during the day. But even here, there are rattlesnake species which are thriving. On the first glimpse, the color of the Mojave rattlesnake may resemble a western diamondback rattlesnake. But it is smaller, usually even more nervous, and its venom is much stronger. The venom of this rattlesnake is very probably the strongest one among all rattlesnake species from the southwestern North America. The different populations of Mojave rattlesnakes have a variable amount of myotoxins and neurotoxins in their venom, and so far, the possible factors leading to that are not known. The very defensive nature of this species is probably caused by life in the open environment, where there is a higher danger from predators. Even the most harsh and hot areas have been inhabited by rattlesnakes. In fact, there is a specialist, the Sidewinder. It has typical horns above its eyes, which distinguish it from other rattlesnakes in the region. This snake likes to be on the sandy soil and often digs itself under the surface. But during the day, the sand gets so hot that it could be really dangerous for a temperature-sensitive reptile. However, the Sidewinder is perfectly adapted for living in this habitat. It crawls in a very unique way, sideways. Thanks to that, the whole surface of its belly is never exposed to hot sand at any one time. Therefore, the snake is not overheating. The light sandy color serves as good camouflage, and it also prevents the body of the animal from absorbing too much heat. Only one thing can reveal that Sidewinder has been at a location. The special type of movement creates prints in the sand, which are very typical for this snake. The sidewinder is so specialized for living in its habitat that it can't move differently than sideways. In some areas of central and southeastern Arizona, the desert is colder and almost resembles a prairie. This habitat is perfect for a dwarf among rattlesnakes. The desert Massasauga. From an evolutionary point of view, it is so distant from other rattlesnakes belonging to the genus Crotalus that it was classified into a separate genus, Sistrurus. Snakes representing these two genera are the only ones in the world possessing a rattle. When Massasauga rattles, it resembles the sound of crickets rather than a strong warning. This snake grows to a maximum length of only about 50 centimeters. Massasauga are shy and try to avoid contact with any big animals. Because they are so small, they don't feed only on tiny vertebrates, but also on invertebrates, especially when they are young. The adults prey mostly on small mammals. The desert Massasauga is endangered in most areas where it lives. Arizona is not an exception, and it belongs to the rarest snakes in this state. The rainy season comes to Sonoran Desert during August, and the landscape gets greener. There are some bright colors around after long months as the plants start to flower. This part of the year has the highest activity of snakes. Rattlesnakes are not the only venomous snakes in the region. In fact, the most venomous snake of Arizona is the Sonoran coral snake. It grows to a maximum length of 1 meter, but it possesses a strong neurotoxin. This snake shows clearly that it is dangerous with its bright warning colors. Most animals react to that by keeping their distance. Apart from venomous species, the desert is inhabited by about 40 species of non-venomous snakes. The gopher snake is one of the most common and adaptable ones. Common king snakes are also quite abundant. This snake is a fearsome predator of rattlesnakes because it is immune to their venom. Some non-venomous snakes living in the areas with abundance of rattlesnakes use vibration of their tails as a defense mechanism. If the tail touches the ground, it may even make a rustling sound and resemble the famous warning of the desert. Many snakes come to the roads during the wet season. Most of them are very active in the late afternoon and during the night. The higher humidity lures out even species that would have been hidden in the shelter for a long time. After the darkness, the temperature falls quickly. To stay active and ready for hunting, snakes crawl on warm roads to absorb heat from the surface. But these are deadly dangerous places for them. This gopher snake is hissing loudly and vibrates its tail to copy the warning of a rattlesnake. This behavior may be effective during an encounter with a predator, but it doesn't help at all when a speeding car arrives. Most of rattlesnake species in Arizona often crawl on the roads during the night. They flatten their body and receive the heat. Even the endangered species, like the desert Massasauga, can be encountered on the roads in some areas. The life of all these snakes is in the hands of drivers. Sadly, a high number of rattlesnakes and other snakes die on the roads every night. Some people run over snakes on purpose, even though these reptiles are very visible on the road. The main reason is just a needless fear or simple hatred. Many snakes die slowly and in a lot of pain. The morning often reveals the sad reality on the desert roads during the wet season. Dozens of dead bodies and lost lives of reptiles, which should have been important for the ecosystem. It is estimated that during one season, thousands of snakes representing various species die on the roads in Arizona. Despite the fact that roads represent a huge danger, rattlesnakes are still thriving in the southwest of the USA. Some species are even more abundant in the vicinity of cities. Tiger rattlesnake has a very strong venom, similar to the one of the Mojave rattlesnake. It has typically a very small head compared to the rest of its body and a striped pattern on its skin. The numbers of tiger rattlesnakes are increasing in the urban areas at the periphery of Tucson in southern Arizona. The changes in the structure of rattlesnake populations living near people are a subject of study for the scientific team of Dr. Matt Good from the University of Arizona. This female tiger rattlesnake was caught last night so she can provide data for a long-term project focused on the relationship of the ecology of rattlesnakes and urbanization.
Have been carrying yesterday or the day before we had a female that the eggs inside her.
After she is anesthetized, the researchers carefully measure her and implant a pit tag under the skin, which allow them to identify her easily if she will ever be captured again.
13.82.
Another way of identification will be the color of the rattle. Every snake gets a unique combination of colors and therefore is recognizable on first sight.
Well, maybe.
Really? We didn't have any. We also need more of the butterfly needle.
Yes. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do we? Yeah, for sure. So, 5 left up here. We got about 2.
After obtaining the valuable data, researchers wake the female up and then release her to the same place where they found her the last night. The field work is done by passionate biology students like Alexis Cazares.
So I'm currently working on a project in Dr. Matt Good's lab, and it's focusing on the effects of urbanization on reptiles. So one of our study sites for the snake project that we're doing is at Stone Canyon, which is located in the Tortolita Mountains. And that site's basically a developing area. So the 3 main species that we're focusing on are the Crotalus atrox, the diamondback rattlesnake, Crotalus molosus, the blacktail, and Crotalus tigris, the tiger rattlesnake. We also do work on Gila monsters, and we capture any other snakes that we find. So one of the main projects that we're doing right now is mark recapture and collecting measurements. So each night we'll go out on the golf cart and in the car, and we'll do 2 laps, so 2 surveys around our site. 2 paths. The first is the road, the second is the golf cart path. So we go out every night during the week and then capture anything that we see. We'll collect temperature data such as the temps on the ground and humidity, and we'll also collect the location, so the UTMs in which we caught that snake, so we know where to return it the next time. And we'll bag all of the stuff we get, take it into the lab to process it the next day, where we will get body measurements, mass. We'll insert a pit tag for identification. If it's a rattlesnake, we paint their rattles so it's easy to find in the field, and collect all of that data in the lab. And then the next night we'll take it out to release it exactly where we found it. We're studying the effects of urbanization on these reptiles, and we would expect that the reptiles would be less abundant, or there would be a loss of biodiversity as people are building houses in these areas. But we've kind of found it to be the opposite. They're actually more abundant at this site, and we think it's because of the golf course. And we don't think that the houses are having too much of an effect, because the houses are really spread apart and there's still a lot of wild land around there. One of the most interesting results from this study has been the fact that the tiger rattlesnake diet has changed. Instead of eating more like smaller reptiles like lizards, they're eating larger rodents, and this may be because they're just more abundant around the golf course. So they have more food sources, so that doesn't seem to be a problem. In total, we're at about 1,300 tiger rattlesnakes, 600 diamondbacks, 300 blacktail rattlesnakes, and 336 Gila monsters. And this has been going on since 2002.
Rattlesnakes are not the only animals which thrive in the urban desert environment. It is also a favorite habitat for some of their predators. For example, the roadrunner. Some rattlesnakes can't live in the areas changed by human activities. These specialists inhabit only the wild and remote locations. The Huachuca Mountains are towering above the vast desert land on the border of Arizona and Mexico. The habitat here is not a desert anymore, but a dry, montane forest. The rarest rattlesnake species are living secretly somewhere in these forests and rocky canyons. The ridge-nosed rattlesnake is one of the smallest rattlesnakes, and it is rarely found in lower altitudes than 1,200 meters above sea level. The distinctive ridges along each side of its nose, which are a series of upturned scales, are unique to this species. The adults hunt small vertebrates of the forest, but the young individuals prey also on big centipedes. Several subspecies are recognized, differing in the prominence of white color on the head and living in different mountain ranges. The color pattern on the head of ridge-nosed rattlesnake is unique among rattlesnakes of southwestern North America. The survival of this vulnerable snake depends on the protection of montane forests and isolation of this habitat from mass tourism. Small rocky canyons hidden in the montane forests are a perfect habitat for even more specialized rattlesnake. Banded rock rattlesnake. It spends most of its life hidden in the holes between rocks, and on average it crawls only for a distance of 9 meters per day. Its color pattern serves as a perfect camouflage, giving it the advantage during hunting and making it difficult to find for predators. Unlike the very calm ridge-nosed rattlesnake, the nervous banded rock rattlesnake rattles loudly when it feels threatened. Living in very specific ecosystems on sky islands in the desert has forced rattlesnakes to adapt, and it resulted in the evolution of unique species. But there are not many areas so extremely tough for survival as the Tenajos Altos Mountains in southwestern Arizona. The temperature here can go up to 50 degrees Celsius during the day. This mountain range is made up of unique, very light-colored granite rock. It is arguably one of the most difficult places to live for any animal species in southwestern North America. Any snake needs to avoid being in the sun during the extreme hot day, and then it needs to cope with a rapid temperature decrease during the night. Against all odds, a rare population of speckled rattlesnakes survives here. These snakes have unique colored scales which match the granite rocks. Apart from the albinotic individuals, there are only a few snake species in the world with such a light coloration. These speckled rattlesnakes grow to smaller sizes than their relatives from other mountain ranges because the habitat in the Tenajos Altos is not rich in a suitable prey. Before the night comes, the temperature drops down and snakes are preparing themselves for the hunt. They will wait, motionless, and rely on their camouflage and thermoreceptors. The end of the day in this place on the border of Arizona and Mexico has a magical atmosphere. The last sunlight disappears and the white mountains are going to be covered by darkness. Animals, which have spent most of the day in the shelter, are now coming out. Some of them are in danger because deadly predators are lurking around. A hungry speckled rattlesnake is one of them. It just picked up the scent of a young kangaroo rat and follows it. The inexperienced rodent doesn't even notice that the snake is approaching. The rattlesnake holds its prey firmly and injects the venom with its fangs. It waits until the small mammal is paralyzed, and then it starts to swallow it, beginning with the head. Rattlesnakes have a crucial role in the desert ecosystem. They maintain the size of rodent populations and prevent them from eating all the vegetation. Recent studies show that the presence of rattlesnakes may be even more vital for the desert than was previously thought. The snake eats a rodent with the plant seeds in its guts. The seeds go untouched through the snake's digestive system and can even germinate, and then they are released out somewhere else during defecation. So, the rattlesnakes are not only successful predators, they are also ecosystem engineers, spreading the seeds of desert plants, from which many are endemic to southwestern North America. Through millions of years of evolution, rattlesnakes have mastered the techniques of survival in the deserts of southwestern North America, and they have become a symbol of this part of the world. Despite the fact that animals and humans connect their presence with a deadly danger, they are crucial for the stability of desert ecosystems. In today's world, rattlesnakes need to adapt to the rapid changes faster than ever before. Humans are also responsible for the survival of the most iconic reptiles of the Wild West. Only if these unique snakes will be effectively protected and respected, this vast and wild land could still be called the Desert of Rattlesnakes. This film was created in the deserts of Arizona and California. Our team, comprising of 4 people, spent 1 month searching for rattlesnakes, and on every location we slept in a tent. The daily routine started with packing of the camp, and then we traveled to another location. In total, we drove for an incredible 11,000 kilometers. To find the rare rattlesnake species, we needed to climb the high mountains and visit the most remote desert areas. Apart from filming, we were also taking art photographs of the snakes. We use films and photography to show people the beauty of these animals, and we educate them about the importance of snakes for the ecosystems around the world. We have found just one individual of some species, But for example, in the case of the western diamondback rattlesnake, we found 29 individuals. All team members have higher education in the field of biology and are experienced in handling of venomous snakes. This helped us to get the footage we dreamed about. During the search for rattlesnakes, we met many other animals of the desert. We are especially happy to find some non-venomous snake species, like the secretive rosy boa. Many snakes were found during the late afternoon and the night, and sadly we encountered dead rattlesnake bodies very often. On the other hand, we took many rattlesnakes from the road, and by that we saved their lives. Filming of the desert of rattlesnakes was an unforgettable experience for us.